Hello adrenaline junkies, welcome to Beyond the Blade. Today we're watching creativity get crushed, literally. Stick around, because you're about to see engineering beauty meeting brute force. A tough plastic barrel goes head-to-head with a high-speed shredder and gets torn apart in seconds, cracking, splitting, and shredding on full display. Total destruction, no resistance. In a display of raw demolition power, an excavator tears into a school bus, crumpling steel and shattering glass like paper. It's not just destruction, it's machine dominance on full display. Dual shear M182 shaft industrial shredder takes on thick steel frames with ease. These tough structures are torn apart and transformed into clean, recyclable pieces in seconds. An intermediate bulk container meets the shredder and doesn't last long. The thick plastic shell is torn apart in seconds, proving that even industrial-grade containers can't stand up to this kind of power. It put up a fight, but the shredder didn't flinch. From thick plastic to dense metal, this hard good was no match for the spinning blades that tore it apart piece by piece. Watch as a heavy-duty shredder makes quick work of a plastic drum, easily tearing it into pieces. It's loud, fast, and satisfying, turning bulky waste into clean, manageable scraps. Tin containers go through the shredder like paper, getting ripped, twisted, and torn into scrap in seconds. It's loud, fast, and perfectly displayed raw industrial power. Luxury meets raw crushing power as this BMW gets torn apart. Nothing survives when the crusher takes over, whether it's the engine, frame, or sleek design. The car crusher flattens a vehicle with pure mechanical force. In seconds, metal, glass, and rubber are reduced to a twisted slab, a brutal reminder of what heavy machinery can do. This early 90s Buick LeSabre once ruled the road with comfort and class, but today it meets the crusher. Steel bends, glass shatters, and just like that, another piece of automotive history is flattened. Piles of wood waste meet the shredder, turning bulky leftovers into neat, manageable chips. Fast, efficient, and perfect for recycling or repurposing. It's the cleaner side of heavy-duty machinery. The A1 John 20 rolls into action, turning stacked cars into scraps in seconds. With raw crushing power and no hesitation, it flattens everything, pure demolition in motion. Once a road trip legend, the 1977 Dodge Sportsman van now faces the end of the line. Its iconic boxy frame crumples under the crusher, closing the chapter on a true classic of the open road. Once built for relaxation, this recliner faces a brutal end. Foam, fabric, and metal frame are no match for the shredder's teeth, a satisfying teardown of something never meant to break. A heavy-duty dual-shear M180 two-shaft industrial shredder goes to work on an already crushed truck, tearing through what's left with unstoppable torque and twin-shaft power. Total destruction, refined by design. Massive wind turbine blades, once symbols of clean energy, are now dismantled with industrial precision. Their reinforced composite shells meet powerful machinery, breaking down the giants of the wind into manageable scrap. Every car carries memories, but once it hits the crusher, those stories vanish with the steel flattened, forgotten, and left behind in the dust. These once shiny aluminum wheels meet the shredder and are torn apart in seconds. Light, tough, and full of value, they're now reduced to raw material ready for recycling. Thick, rigid, and built to last, but not against this machine. Steel drums are crushed, torn, and shredded into scrap in seconds, proving once again that nothing is too tough for industrial steel processing. Loose aluminum chips are pressed into dense briquettes, reducing volume and boosting recycling efficiency. It's a clean, compact solution that turns scrap into value with every pass. Scrap metal, thick steel, stubborn parts, it doesn't matter. This crusher chews through it all like it's nothing. When raw force meets relentless blades, even the toughest metal doesn't stand a chance. From wheels to frame, the entire motorcycle is fed into the shredder and torn apart without hesitation. Metal twists, plastic cracks, and what once roared is reduced to scrap in moments.
Build is strong, productivity is high, and the sharpening is only required for normal use of more than 1,000 tons. Dual-axis metal shredder adopts the LC programmable control, which has a high degree of automation and is easy to operate. Both shredders are also known as tire shredders and biaxial press. This new shredder, carrying in the squeezing to reduce the size of the material, provides reliable quality shredding equipped for the early stage of waste recycling.
In a jaw-dropping display of industrial recycling, the SSI Dual Shear M180 takes on a massive OTR tire. Thick rubber and steel reinforcements are no match for this two-shaft shredder's relentless power. An 80s icon goes down hard as this Ford Bronco 2 is fed to the crusher. The compact SUV, once built for adventure, gets flattened in seconds. A rough end for a rugged classic. steel, wires, and reinforced housing, this transformer box is built tough, but not tough enough. Watch as the machine tears it down piece by piece, turning heavy-duty hardware into recyclable scrap. It might not be high-tech, but it sure gets the job done. Forget machines. This is raw, old-school destruction, where gravity and boulders do all the crushing. Watch as a massive shredder devours a white bus, ripping through steel panels and seats with unstoppable force. It's loud, brutal, and oddly satisfying. Total destruction in motion. Any type of wood is definitely reduced to chips in seconds as powerful industrial blades tear through it. This is what controlled destruction looks like. Fast, loud, and clean. A fresh coat of creativity meets a steel wall as a painted van gets flattened right after its makeover. Art and destruction collide most unexpectedly. And if you're enjoying this clash of beauty and brute force, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Don't let the word paper fool you. These dense cores are tough, but in the jaws of an industrial shredder, they unravel fast, turning into strips and dust in seconds. From bumper to boot, this car doesn't stand a chance. The shredder pulls it in whole and tears it apart piece by piece. A full metal breakdown that's as brutal as it is mesmerizing. first it seemed like the wood wouldn't budge, but once the shredder was locked in, it tore through every inch with raw power, turning resistance into splinters in no time. A heavy-duty shredder takes on a gas tank, crushing it into tiny scrap pieces. What was once a solid metal shell is now ready to be melted and reused, turning destruction into transformation. The massive HP 1100 Moros shear takes on an oversized steel bin wagon body. With brutal cutting power, it slices through heavy metal like butter, turning bulky scrap into manageable pieces in seconds. This is press processing at its finest. Metal sheets are compressed with immense force, flattening and reshaping them in seconds. Whether it's for recycling or manufacturing, this process shows just how powerful and precise industrial presses can be. A full-sized bus meets the crushing jaws of heavy machinery, and it's over fast. Twisted metal, shattered glass, and one clear message: nothing escapes once the crusher takes hold. One by one they fall. This bus follows the same fate: crushed, flattened, and reduced to scrap under the unstoppable force of the crusher. Another giant gone in seconds. This van didn't stand a chance. The crusher rolls in and turns it into a twisted metal sheet. Quick, brutal, and oddly satisfying to watch from start to finish. Experience the crushing from the inside out as this Ford E150 van gets flattened. The groaning metal, cracking glass, and slow collapse make for an oddly calming ASMR-style destruction you won't forget. Fresh out of the yard, this 24-foot crusher gets straight to work, tearing through metal with smooth, unstoppable force. It's clean, powerful, and built to crush everything. The 2004 Big Mac rolls into action, crushing two cars with ease. Its powerful hydraulic press and no-nonsense design turn full vehicles into scrap slabs in seconds. In the heart of a scrapyard, the classic 1993 Big Mac car crusher still has it, flattening two SUVs with pure hydraulic muscle. Old school crushing power at its finest. Bonfiglioli Arietti is a powerhouse baler built to crush cars into dense, compact bales. Hydraulic power and solid engineering flattens full vehicles with speed and efficiency, readying them for recycling in record time. In the heart of the scrapyard, a powerful crusher flattens a car with ease. Metal crunches, glass shatters, and what's left is a compact slab of scrap ready for recycling. Watching a vintage car get crushed is tough. Decades of design and nostalgia flattened in seconds. It's brutal, final, and the kind of moment that makes you wince, even if you can't look away. This classic Ford F-250 from the 70s gets its final send-off under the crusher. Once a symbol of rugged reliability, it's now flattened into scrap. A tough end for a tough truck. One after another, cars line up for their final moments. With each slam of the crusher, metal folds, glass shatters, and what was once a fleet becomes a pile of scrap. Fast, loud, and unforgiving. Tough, dense, and built to last, but not tough enough. This rigid plastic is no match for the industrial shredder, which slices through every piece and reduces it to clean, recyclable fragments in seconds. Once a symbol of utility and road trip culture, this 77-ish Dodge Tradesman van now faces the crusher. With every crunch and fold, a piece of classic van history is flattened into scrap. And just like that, the masterpiece becomes metal flakes. If you enjoyed the chaos, the color, and the crunch, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us your favorite moment in the comments. More unexpected collisions of art and machinery are coming your way, only on Beyond the Blade.